Did Donald Trump just go too far? He posted a video on his own social media platform showing Barack and Michelle Obama with their faces digitally placed on apes set to the iconic music from The Lion King. The White House scrambled to call it a mistake. Staffers were blamed, posts were deleted, but the damage was already done. And then, after days of silence, Barack Obama broke it. He didn't just respond to the insult, he delivered a powerful, measured rebuke that cut deeper than any shouting match ever could. But here is the million-dollar question everyone keeps asking. Did Obama really fire back at Trump's teenage son, Barron? The answer is going to surprise you, because the truth is far more interesting than the rumor. It started on a Thursday night, like so many controversies in the modern political era, on social media, in the dark, with no warning. President Trump shared a video on Truth Social that was, on its surface, pushing familiar and repeatedly debunked false claims about the 2020 presidential election. This kind of content has become almost routine in today's political climate. Recycled grievances, familiar narratives, the same allegations that dozens of courts have dismissed. But at the very end of the video, something different appeared. For just a split second, almost as if someone hoped no one would notice, there it was. One of the oldest, most vile racist tropes in American history. The Obamas, the first black president and first lady of the United States, depicted as primates. Not as a subtle implication, not as something open to interpretation. It was direct, unmistakable, and deeply deliberate. The backlash was immediate and came from unexpected corners. Even some of Trump's own political allies refused to stay quiet. Senator Tim Scott, one of the most prominent black Republicans in the country and a longtime Trump supporter, stepped forward and called it the most racist thing he had seen come out of this White House. That statement alone was seismic. When your own allies are using words like that, damage control becomes nearly impossible. The White House's response was, to put it charitably, chaotic. The press secretary initially attempted to dismiss the public's outrage as fake, suggesting that people were manufacturing anger over something that wasn't a big deal. Then, almost in the same breath, the official position changed. The post was quietly deleted, a staffer was blamed, the story became about process and error rather than content and intent. It was a masterclass in political spin, and very few people were buying it. For several days after the incident, the Obamans said nothing publicly. No statement, no tweet, no Instagram post. The world waited. Commentators speculated. Was silence itself the statement? Were they choosing dignity over engagement? And then Barack Obama spoke. He appeared on a podcast, a deliberately casual conversational format that allows for nuance and depth that a press conference never could, and he did not hold back. He didn't name Trump directly. He didn't need to. Obama described the current state of American public debate as a clown show. He said that the sense of decorum and shame that once governed public life, the unwritten rules that kept certain behaviors off limits, had been completely and perhaps irreparably lost. He noted that the majority of Americans, regardless of political affiliation, find this kind of behavior troubling. That people across the country, in both red states and blue states, look at what passes for political discourse today and feel something close to grief. It was a powerful, sweeping rebuke of everything the ape video represented, delivered calmly, with precision, and without a single moment of personal pettiness. Obama was not shouting, he was diagnosing. But the moment that truly ignited the internet happened just recently, at the funeral of Reverend Jesse Jackson, one of the most towering figures in American civil rights history. The room was filled with leaders, activists, clergy, and everyday Americans who had come to pay their respects to a man who spent his entire life fighting for dignity and justice. When Barack Obama approached the podium, the crowd responded the way crowds tend to respond to Obama. The energy shifted, people stood, and then, almost organically, a chant began to ripple through the room. 4 more years, 4 more years. Obama smiled, that familiar measured smile, and leaned into the microphone. He paused just long enough for the room to settle, and then he said 7 words.
No, because I believe in the Constitution. The room exploded, laughter, applause, cheering. In a single sentence delivered at a civil rights legends memorial, Obama managed to do several things at once. He graciously declined the crowd's enthusiasm, he reaffirmed his own respect for democratic norms and the rule of law, and without ever saying Donald Trump's name, he drew a sharp, unmistakable contrast with a president who has repeatedly and publicly flirted with the idea of serving a third term, something that is explicitly prohibited by the 22nd Amendment of the United States Constitution. It was, by any measure, a masterclass in political communication.
Now, social media did what social media always does. The clip spread. It was clipped, shared, reposted, and debated millions of times across every platform imaginable. Most people celebrated it. They called it a shutdown. They called it elegant. They called it the kind of response that makes you remember why Obama was such a dominant political communicator for over a decade. But then, in the darker corners of the internet, something else began to happen. Rumors started circulating. Claims emerged that Obama hadn't just been talking about the Constitution and his own respect for the law, that he had specifically, deliberately insulted Barron Trump. That somehow a response to a chant about his own hypothetical return to office was actually a personal attack on the president's youngest son. The headlines multiplied, the outrage machine revved up, and millions of people who only saw the headline, never the full video, never the full quote, walked away believing a version of events that simply did not happen. So, let's be absolutely clear. Let's look at the full quote. Let's watch the full video. Let's apply the most basic standards of reading comprehension and context. Barack Obama was standing at a podium at a funeral. A crowd was chanting at him about running for president again. He responded to that chant, and only that chant, by saying he believes in the Constitution, which limits presidents to 2 terms. That's it. That's the whole story. At no point, not in any video, not in any transcript, not in any verified account of that day, did Barack Obama mention Barron Trump. He did not reference him. He did not allude to him. He did not insult him, not once, not even obliquely. The claim that Obama fired back at Trump's teenage son is not a misinterpretation. It is not a matter of perspective or political disagreement. It is a fabrication, a piece of misinformation designed specifically to generate outrage, drive clicks, and muddy the waters around what was actually a straightforward and dignified moment. This is how the misinformation cycle works. Take a real event, attach a fictional narrative to it, write a headline that asks a question rather than stating a fact so that the outlet can later claim it never actually said the false thing. Watch the outrage spread, collect the engagement, repeat. The real story here is not about a rumor. The real story is about what Barack Obama actually did, and what it reveals about the state of American political life in 2025. He watched his family be depicted in one of the most racist ways imaginable, on a platform run by the sitting president of the United States. He waited. He did not fire back with insults. He did not post a video in response. He sat down on a podcast and talked about decorum, about shame, about the slow erosion of the standards that once made public life something Americans could be proud of. And then he stood at a civil rights icon's funeral and in 7 words reminded the country what it looks like to respect the office, respect the law, and respect the moment, all at the same time. That is the story. Not a fictional attack on a teenager, not $1 million question with a surprising answer. The real story is simpler and in some ways more powerful. A former president, faced with a genuinely racist attack, chose dignity over retaliation, and in doing so made his point more effectively than any shouting match ever could. The next time you see a clickbait headline asking whether Obama attacked a child, stop. Ask yourself who benefits from that story being true. Ask yourself whether you've watched the actual video.
Ask yourself whether the headline is asking a question specifically because stating the answer outright would expose it as false. Remember the clown show comment. Remember the podcast. Remember those 7 words spoken at Reverend Jesse Jackson's funeral. A masterclass in shading your rival without ever lowering yourself to their level. Delivered in a room full of people who had spent their lives fighting for exactly the kind of dignity Obama was modeling in that moment. So, what do you think? Was Obama's Constitution comment a subtle dig at Trump or simply a statement of principle? Was his podcast appearance the right move, or should he have responded more directly? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and I'll feature the best responses in my next video. Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay critical, and I'll see you soon.